All right, welcome back, everyone. So now we will resume our meeting, discussing agenda item 9, update, discussion, and possible action on 2025 legislation impacting the board. And that would be Justin presenting.
Yeah, I think Jessica's going to cover 9A, correct?
Oh my,
Sure. So 9A, it was just a very quick, more informational in general. That was just the informational hearing that the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development held. They were hoping to do a joint committee informational hearing, but it wouldn't work out for scheduling purposes. I was at a pretty quick notification of that. And so I provided the agenda from that and also a link to the whole hearing if you wanted to watch. But it was informational. It started with presentations, the same presentations that you had in January from Nevada and from Kentucky. They also provided the same presentation to the Senate committee. And one thing to note is that Senator Chobo, who's the author of the chiropractic bill. She's not on the committee, but she participated in the informational hearing to hear more about that information for her own bill. So those two executive directors from Kentucky and Nevada gave their presentation, and then I testified with my colleagues from the chiropractic board and from the physical therapy board. And then their third panel was, so that was the regulatory perspective to show what the current world looks like in the regulatory perspectives. And then you had the third panel for the education perspectives. So you had individuals from the Animal Chiropractic Certification Program, you had the Canine Rehabilitation Program certification, and then you had an individual from UC Davis to give an overview of the veterinarian education. And then after that, they gave the practitioner's perspective, where they had an individual who was a animal physical therapist, that was Karen Atlas, testified. And then you had an individual who is a chiropractor who practices on animals. And then you had an individual who's a veterinarian who talks about how he incorporates other veterinarians who are different modalities from physical therapists and chiropractors, but they're also licensed veterinarians who do that. And he talked about that perspective. There wasn't any real action that came from the hearing because it was purely informational. It does sound like there will be continued legislation to allow chiropractors and physical therapists to practice on animals. So I do anticipate that coming. And Christy attended as well with me. So if you have anything else to add or thoughts.
I just wanted to say, if anybody hasn't had the chance to read the background information paper, I found that to be very informative as an information paper and helpful if you're just trying to understand the landscape.
does anybody have any comments or questions regarding this item? No. Shall we proceed? Just
Yep.
Okay, so we will continue on with the other items for agenda item 9. All right.
Okay, so agenda item 9B. So in short, the 5 bills listed under agenda item 9B have all been approved by the governor and filed with the Secretary of State. The first bill mentioned on page 2 of the memo, AB 516. This bill allows RVTs and veterinary assistants to perform animal health care services as long as they are not prohibited by law and are done under a veterinarian supervision. It also permits them to provide such care in animal shelters under a veterinarian's order. Additionally, RVTs would be authorized to perform dental procedures, including tooth extractions, under veterinary supervision. I meant to mention, I think the purpose of this section too is to share with you what our implementation plan is in response to all these bills being approved. So right there in the middle of page 2, Says the board will create and post a newsletter going over the impacts of this bill. It will be noted that while it adds the authority in statute for an RVT to perform dental care procedures under the supervision of a veterinarian, RVTs already had that authority in regulation. So any questions about AB 516? No? Okay, moving on, the next bill on page 2, AB 867. This is the cat decline bill. This bill classifies feline tendinectomies, decline, and similar claw removal procedures as veterinary practices that may only be performed for therapeutic purposes. It authorizes disciplinary action for non-therapeutic use, excludes these procedures from owner-performed care, and preserves local decline bans enacted before January 1, 2026. It also included conditional changes tied to AB 1502, our sunset bill. This bill was approved by the governor on October 9th. And this was a bill that this board did oppose back in April. So the implementation for this one on page 3, the board will create and post a newsletter going over the impacts of this bill. Specifically, the newsletter will emphasize the prohibition of the feline claw removals for non-therapeutic purposes and clarify that the bill is not intended to prohibit or restrict a veterinarian from nail trimming or applying non-surgical scratching mitigation solutions, such as the application of a device to the tip of a claw. So any questions about AB 867? Okay. The next bill, item 3 on page 3 of the memo, AB 1502. As you know, this is our sunset bill. This was approved by the governor on October 1. And just in short, well, the bill is summarized on pages 3, 4, and 5. I won't go into all the detail there, but in short, extends the board's authority to 2030. It would add a second RVT member to the board and requires one veterinarian with equine and livestock experience. There's a medical records component, requires veterinarians to provide medical and payment records upon request, especially in urgent cases. The bill also removes the 20% annual inspection requirement. There's some CE provisions included there as well. And the bill also introduces a tiered fee structure for veterinary premises and removes board approval of RVT training programs. And I'll see, is there anything, Jessica, you wanted to add to?
Yeah, so it was signed by the governor, so it is set to take effect January 1. One thing I did wanted to note, 4800, as you all know, was amended to allow an RVT, add another RVT on the board for the board composition. However, and I give full credit to our DCA ledge analyst who pointed out this issue, 4801, which talks about board member qualifications, and 4802 that talks about appointing authority. Those two sections were not amended in the sunset bill. So because they were not amended, then it doesn't talk about what the qualifications are or who appoints. We need that fixed in order to get someone appointed to the board. As soon as it was pointed out, I reached out to both the Senate and Assembly BNP committees. They are now aware of it. They have made some changes of what the assumption was that the governor was appointing and they would have the same qualifications as the existing RVT member. So we had to make some tweaks to the language. They do seem hopeful to get that into a quick cleanup bill with an urgency clause. So hopefully within the first few months, they can get it fixed and effective, because there's other sunset bills that had some similar issues and that they hope they can take care of pretty quickly. So we're working on it, but yes, I am very sorry that was missed. I was kicking myself for quite some time, but we are cleaning it up and we'll be getting it addressed.
Okay. Any other comments or? No? Okay. Oh, Tara?
Tara Welch, Board Counsel. One of the requested amendments in the board sunset bill was to remove the 5-member quorum to move to reinstate a license in BPC section 4887. Jessica, you just mentioned that the Senate or the BNP committees are working on some including a couple other sunset provisions that didn't make it into the bill. Is that one of them?
No, I think they're trying to make this very specific to an immediate urgent need. I can make the request, but I think that they really want to limit it to things that are incredibly urgent to get fixed right now.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay, so the implementation plan for this bill is mentioned on page 5. So the board will create and post a newsletter going over the impacts of this bill for consumers, RVTs, veterinarians, veterinary premises, and VACSPs. The board will also review regulations which may need to be repealed or amended through the Section 100 rulemaking process due to various statutory changes. In addition, the board will submit a ticket to DCA's Office of Information Services to update Breeze to add small, medium, and large modifiers into the veterinary premises initial and renewal applications. Okay, moving on to AB 1505. This is the Food and Ag Omnibus Bill. This was approved by the governor on October 1st as well. This bill extends the state's vertebrate pest control research program to 2035, maintains county fee requirements, and continues funding for research. It tightens rules on antimicrobial drug use in livestock, requiring a veterinarian's prescription and a valid VCPR. It also expands enforcement authority at certified mobile farmers markets, allowing inspections and evidence seizure. And the implementation for this bill is discussed on page 6. Again, we'll create and post a newsletter going over the impacts of the bill. Specifically, the newsletter will notify veterinarians that the board will have enforcement authority if veterinarians do not comply with federal and state veterinary feed directive requirements. So any questions on that bill? Okay, and then lastly, Senate Bill 602. This was a CVMA, San Francisco SPCA, and San Diego Humane Society sponsored bill, bill that the board supported back in April. This was approved by the governor on October 10th. And again, this bill allows RVTs to administer preventative vaccines or parasite treatments at animal shelters without the veterinarian being physically present, as long as the veterinarian is in the general vicinity or available by phone and easily reachable. And the implementation is on the last page of the memo, page 7. Again, we'll create and post a newsletter going over the RVT impacts of this bill. So any questions or comments about SB 602?
They're avoiding eye contact, so I guess no. I would now open it up for public comment in the room. Anybody does have anything? Nope, no comments inside the room. So moderator, can we please open up agenda item A and B for comments for those participating remotely?
All right, WebEx is taking public comments. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. And it looks like our first request is coming from Karen Atlas. Hold on just a moment, please. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi there, my name is Karen Atlas. I am the president of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition. And I just wanted to make a brief comment about item number 9A about the Senate informational hearing. And I was wondering, Ms. Sieferman made a comment in that meeting that she was going to attend an AAVSB meeting about and finding about the complaints in the other states. I know that the previous executive officer, Anne Marie Del Magnayo, did that also about 9 years ago, and there were no complaints at that time, and was wondering if there was any report back on whether that meeting happened and whether there are complaints to address Senator Ochoa Bo's discussions about getting some data on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that appears to be our only request for public comment at the moment.
Thank you. Okay, now we can move on to agenda item 10.
Okay, so agenda item 10A, update and discussion on pending regulations. We have 6 regular rulemaking packages
Moving on.
that are pending in various phases of the rulemaking process. The first rulemaking listed on page 1 is the minimum standards for alternate veterinary premises. We're going to address this package in the next agenda item, but I'll just briefly mention that we went through the 45-day public comment period, which concluded on August 4th. During that time, we received 1 question and 1 comment. They were deemed non-substantive. We did address those comments in the final statement of reasons. The package was reviewed and approved by the DCA director and then submitted to OAL for final approval. We were at the kind of the tail end of OAL's review of this package, and then we were notified on September 25th that there were some concerns with the language. They deemed some of the language, or indicated that some of the language caused some clarity issues, and we'll get into that in more detail. When OAL does their final review of packages, they're looking at certain criteria. The authority, consistency issues, clarity issues, the necessity, et cetera. So there were a couple of examples where we used the language, if applicable or as applicable, and they were wanting us to be more specific. But as I mentioned, we'll get into that in more detail under the next agenda item. We will subsequently need to go out for another 15-day public comment period if the board approves the language in the next agenda item. And hopefully we can get through that comment period without any additional concerns or comments, and we can proceed with the rulemaking process. The next package mentioned on page 3 is the drug compounding regulatory package. The summary of that package is listed there. I'm not going to go over it in detail there. We are currently in the 45-day public comment period for this package that concludes on November 3rd. To date, we've received 1 comment. We'll be taking a look at that. But yeah, we're coming up here on the 45-day public comment period, conclusion of that period. And then the next package is listed here. They're just listed, I think, in the order that we will be processing them. Our records package, this package was kind of tied to corresponding legislative amendments in our sunset bill, as mentioned there here, corresponding legislative amendments to BPC sections 4826.6 and 4855. They were included in AB 1502. So as a result of that bill being approved, we will proceed with processing this package. The next item on page 4 is the civil penalties for citation package. This package was also contingent upon the approval of some legislative language in the sunset bill as well. So now that the bill has been approved, we can proceed with the processing of this package as well. On page 5 of the memo is our RVT registration pathways package. And I'll just, I guess, briefly mention that the MDC RVT subcommittee was tasked with evaluating all RVT registration pathways and making recommendations to the MDC and the board. As a result, regulatory proposals to amend section 2068.5 and to repeal section 2068.6 were approved by the board in January and July 2025. Prior to the July 2025 meeting, it was determined that the proposals would be merged into one regulatory package. So we'll be pursuing those two proposals together. In short, the proposals would address concerns related to qualified instructors, the number and location of required clinical practice hours for RVT applicants, supervising veterinarian license requirements, and how supervising veterinarians attest to the clinical practice experience of RVT applicants. The proposal would also eliminate the experience-only pathway for RVT registration that currently only exists for out-of-state applicants. So the update here at the July 2025 MDC and board meetings, revised amendments to 2068.5 were reviewed and considered. The board approved these revised amendments, and the package will be prepared for Regulations Council review and initial TCA director and agency approvals. And then the last item on page 5 is basically a cleanup proposal. There were a couple of provisions that we tried to include in a Section 100 cleanup at the beginning of the year. They were deemed substantive or a bit more substantive, so we had to kind of extract them from the Section 100 proposal. So we will be pursuing those separately. And there's also some additional cleanup language that's discussed here that will be included in this package. So that kind of concludes the update. And then in the attachment, as always, any text in red indicates any updates with these packages since the last board meeting. So that concludes my update, unless there are any comments or questions.
Does anybody have any comments? All right, so we now open this agenda item for public comment in the room. Anybody? I see none. Moderator, could you please open up the line for those participating remotely?
WebEx is taking public comment. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. I guess that concludes agenda item 10.
10A.
Or 10A. Oh, we do have 10B. Sorry. Okay. All right. So now we move on to agenda item 10B.
Okay, thank you. And as mentioned previously, this deals with our alternate premises package. This was the package that was under final review by OAL, and they had some concerns with some of the language included in the package, as it's mentioned here. Page 1 of the memo just gives you a kind of a detailed summary of what this package is proposing to do. Moving on to page 2 is the update, and I already mentioned it was under final review. We were notified by the reviewing attorney that there were some concerns. We met with Regulations Council, Jessica, the MDC chair, and representatives from CVMA to kind of work through the concerns and kind of make some tweaks to the language. So that's kind of noted in the memo as well as in the attachment. But as I mentioned, there were specifically some concerns with the language, if applicable, under 2030 B3. And then there was another example of as applicable under section 2030.2B. And then I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but on page 3, there was an additional minor concern that the previously noticed language did not properly identify new text as shown here. So I might, defer to either Jessica or Elizabeth to see if you wanted to add any more about kind of the discussions with OAL, but we can also show the kind of the proposed modified text. We did come up with modified text, and OAL did offer to kind of review that text before today's meeting, just to give us some additional feedback. But we're hoping we can just kind of proceed with the processing of this package. So.
So a few things I just wanted to add. So if we can share, I don't know who's sharing the screen, but we need to pull up the language from OAL.
It should be, Matt should be able to pull
Okay.
it up if you share the Word document. There it is.
Yeah. So it looks a little different than what you have in the package. Mainly, OAL address some more formatting concerns of how to properly notice. So those are the minor changes that you'll see. There are some issues with numbering that, again, all stemming from formatting. And then they also had recommended striking a section that said, if applicable, I don't know where. I'm not quite sure what's happening right now.
Yeah, 2030 B3.
Page 2,
I think it's at the beginning.
page 2, isn't it?
Let me see here.
It's under 2030.2 in the intro paragraph.
Is it page 2?
Page
We have page 8.
I have 12, page 12.
Page 12.
So thank you, right there. So that's another thing from OAL that we just received, that as applicable was not necessary any longer because we did make it more specific. So they had recommended to strike that language. So a couple things. One, I do really want to thank Dr. Miller, Dan Baxter, and Marie Usry for being able to jump on very quickly to work through some of the concerns. And you'll see there the first one being 2030 B3, when this was an OAL noted that this was a change that was made at a board meeting after all of the discussions, and made it broad to include diagnostic imaging during surgery if applicable. The if applicable, they said, caused clarity issues, and when we met with CVMA and with Marie, we had talked about when it should be minimally required to provide the diagnostic imaging. And then there was discussion of, we don't actually need diagnostic imaging to be that overly broad. Some of the feedback we received was that other diagnostic imaging, such as fluoroscopy, CT, MRI, and ultrasound, are not utilized in sterile surgery. And orthopedic was added to clarify the minimum requirement of when they needed to be able, when orthopedic surgery is performed, equipment for viewing radiographs must be provided. So that was the input that we received. Go ahead. It was discussed that it was easier to revive what current law said. And so current law had equipment for viewing radiographs. And so we changed that to provide equipment for viewing radiographs, and then added orthopedic surgery. Go ahead.
Thanks. This is way too specific, and there are many times that MRIs, CTs, and radiographs are used in surgery. Pulling it up on a laptop or computer in the room that's being, used for other purposes as well, like anesthetic records and the like, outside of orthopedic surgery, thoracotomies, hemilaminectomies. There's a number of other diagnostic modalities that are being used. It's diagnostic imaging, and this is why we, after a long discussion, changed it from radiographs to update it into the 21st century so that it was diagnostic imaging. I would propose to leave the sentence there and remove if applicable.
Okay. So we can, if you want, we can take public comment on each section or take public comment on the end. Do you have a preference? Uh, let's go ahead and take public comment on just that section, just so we can hear from the reasons why that was changed.
All right, so we're open for public comment for that specific item.
Thank you, Grant Miller, CVMA. Thank you for the comments. We did the best research that we could and talked to as many doctors as we could. Is it safe to say that the equipment for viewing the CT images, the MRI, would essentially be like the same equipment that you would use to view radiographs, like a laptop or a tablet?
Yes.
Then that makes sense that it's inconsequential that we just say all diagnostic equipment. What our concern was is that, for instance, an ultrasound, so ultrasounds can be, sometimes you can view a recording of an ultrasound, but there'd be no need to do so in surgery. You'd have to do a live ultrasound in surgery. And we don't think that anyone's doing live ultrasounds in sterile surgery.
I have.
Okay, so then we learn something new every day. So it seems appropriate that your suggested amendment would reflect then what is actually happening in practice, which seems to be the moving target that takes a collective village to find. So thank you for that. That makes sense to us.
Thank you.
Okay, so we would like to open it up for our participants online for the same item.
All right, WebEx is taking public comment on this item. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment now to see if we have a request for public comment.
And declare this is just on the amendment for CCR section 2030B3.
Thank you very much. Seeing no request, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please.
All right, and then in CCR 2030.2B, that's where we had a more robust discussion because the as applicable was provided too much of a clarity issue because the concern was the regulated public would not know when each requirement applies. And so we had discussions of the difference between when there are when you have a mobile unit that's providing the services from the vehicle, or if they're providing the services within the vehicle. And so we had to break it out to where the recommended amendment is now in E. And for those who are providing services within the unit or the vehicle, that's when they have the list of things that would apply to them. And then we specified the others that would not. So you see that those amendments also in there. And then the minor amendment, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but so that goes over the whole thing. So I think at this point, if you have any questions or further discussion, if not, then potentially have a recommended motion, then back out for public comment.
Does anybody have any comment? I see none.
Yeah, I do. So how are we now defining a small animal mobile clinic? Is that we're striking that out? Is that right?
It's more broad, and so it's not going to be small. It's just mobile veterinary premises.
And so the original intention was to limit this just to small animal mobile clinic, but because we're striking that language out and we're using the broader language of mobile veterinary premises, how does this capture the original intent of the regulation now?
So the existing law is small mobile animal clinics. So what this is changing overall is to make it for small and large, not exclusive. What we've done here for this language is just reordered what was originally noticed to the public to give a distinction between when all of these first elements are listed, all mobile veterinary premises will be required to follow these. And then the last are the exceptions when they aren't required.
So it still follows the same intent that it'll apply to small animal and large animal, with the distinction being if they're providing the services within the vehicle or if they're providing the services from the vehicle. So all of that is still intact.
Our current law doesn't have any regulations for large animals. Does that make more sense? So it's trying to be more inclusive.
I understand that. I'm sorry, is it on?
Yes.
Originally, the intent was to draw a distinction and to limit only to small animals, but now by generalizing the language, that distinction will no longer exist.
No, so the whole intent of this rulemaking package was, well, one of many, was to eliminate the narrow scope of small animal and have it apply to all mobile, whether it's small or large.
Okay,
So that was the whole intent of this section, was to make it more applicable to both. And so it still does that. And none of that has changed.
okay, all right.
So I'll make a motion. Oh, yeah.
Can we take a look at page 10 of the new text? I just want to point out for the members that there's been some there's been
It's
some,
page 14. I think that's what you're referring to. These were the other edits. I thought we had already made those changes. That the renumbering C,
Yeah, are we sharing
yeah,
the,
is this the right one?
is this the one from OAL? I'm not seeing OAL's even,
Oh, no, okay, the one you were sharing is the right one. That's
Okay.
correct. Sorry. So the one on the screen. So it's changing it to little f and updating the subdivisions that were
yep.
inaccurately listed.
yeah, I'm just pointing this out because it wasn't in the original meeting materials. This is new, just so the public can follow along.
Okay. Not what's posted, you're looking at what's being shared. Yeah, okay. Motion?
Okay, now I'm off my motion page. Sorry. Let me go back. Okay, here we go. I would like to make a motion to approved proposed modified text as discussed today for a 15-day comment period. And if there are no adverse comments received during the 15-day public comment period, delegate to the executive officer the authority to adopt the proposed regulatory changes as modified, and also delegate to the executive officer the authority to make any technical or non-substantive changes that may be required in completing the rulemaking file.
I'll second.
Okay, so we open up the motion for public comment. Any public comment from the room? I see none. Moderator, could you open it up for public comment for those participating remotely? Moderator,
Moderator, are you there?
we can't hear you.
My apologies. We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request online, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Pulowski?
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury,
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Dr. Maniak,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Solicido,
Yes.
motion carries. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. That concludes our agenda item 10. Now I can say it. All right, so we would like to continue with some of the agenda items for tomorrow since we have time and we love to keep working. So we would continue with agenda item 21, which is my president's report. Okay. Uh, I since our last meeting, I have been involved in one, the onboarding of our new member, Dr. Mike Tomlinson, which happened on Teams with Jessica Sieferman, our executive officer, on August 13. And on September 17 to 20, I attended the AAVSB annual meeting and conference in Cincinnati, Ohio. As a first-time attendee and voting delegate, it was very interesting. It was a great experience, I guess. And I attended the conference together with Dr. Dick Sullivan, Dr. Mark Nunez, Dr. Christina Bradbury, Christy Pawlowski, and of course, Jessica Sieferman. Part of the conference, I was able to attend the member board training, which mainly focused, I guess, on the Practice Act module being discussed and introduced to a lot of the board members. And it was very interesting to find out how I believe we have done a lot of work that is just being introduced as a concept, new concept to some of the, I guess, smaller states. And that's why I take pride in representing California, knowing that we bring a lot to the table. We also had AAVSB elections. California was well represented with nominees in 3 categories for president, with Dr. Nunez as a candidate, Dr. Bradbury as for director, and Dr. Maniak for ICVA representative. However, only Dr. Bradbury was successfully elected. And then on October 1st, we had a joint.
Perhaps we
go ahead.
can also, anyone else who was at the AAVSB conference, if we wanted to share, is that?
Oh, sure, yes, please. Anybody who wants to chime in on your experience for the AAVSB conference?
I can add a couple things too that they were covered as part of the AAVSB conference, just to bring to the board's attention. One thing that AAVSB is doing is looking at providing the VT&E in Spanish. When they were discussing that, they did show a map up on their screen, and they showed the United States and Canadian provinces in various shades of green. California was white because we are 45% population speaking Spanish. And so they wanted to just hear from the executive directors of the various states if there were any concerns in offering, or if there would be a desire to offer the examination in Spanish to the RVTs. And as someone from California, let them know that the board hasn't discussed it, but I do think that they would be open to it. We have no laws that require that it be given in English. And one of the questions from AVSB was asking if there are states that require the exam to be provided specifically in English. It kind of pulled at a thread though, because there were states that do specifically require the examination both for the NAVLE and the VT&E to be provided in English. But for the Canadian provinces, both the VT&E and the NAVLE are provided also in French, because French is another official language in Canada. But that information is not being provided to those boards. And so those boards are just provided of the passing score, but not being told if it was provided in French. And so what it's led to is some states potentially licensing individuals that conflict with what their laws are because it was given in the language that's not English. And so I think that those states, it was recommended, and I encourage them to look at whether or not they need to make sure, whether they need to keep it to English, or if they can remove that requirement. but they are interested in looking to provide that VTNE in Spanish. There are concerns regarding how the AAVSB is reporting VTNE data to schools. They're no longer providing individual data to the schools on the individual students. The concern that was raised was regarding the confidentiality of that. ICVA is providing that information to the students, and they address the confidentiality concern by asking for permission from the students. So if the students give permission, then they're providing that to there. So there's also some concerns about the VTNE development that I won't get into much right here, but they are trying to work to address those concerns. But also for the business session of the AAVSB meeting, the conference, I do want to highlight the 3 resolutions that were passed by the AAVSB membership, which California voted, I believe we voted in support for all 3 resolutions. The first resolution was to oppose the global expansion until the AAVSB addressed some more internal concerns about how they're operating. So put the global expansion on hold until they can fix that essentially. And I can happy to provide. I think AVSB sent an email to all board members as well to let them know about the resolutions. Another resolution that was passed was that the VCPR needs to be established in person. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts the rest of the United States and Canadian provinces. I've received a lot of questions from licensees and other interested states about what that means for California as far as the VCPR being established in person. Right now, it does nothing, that resolution, because we do have the ability for them to establish it via telemedicine. And that's a statute. It will be interesting to see what AAVSB does when it comes to their Practice Act model, because it does allow how it's currently written for that to be established virtually as well. But now you have a resolution that potentially conflicts with that position. So we'll be monitoring that. And then you have the other resolution that was passed. All 3, by the way, were proposed by Kentucky. I think I left that part out. And it was opposing AAVSB's ability to endorse the VPA. So that's the Veterinary Practitioner Associate mid-level practitioner type license that was created in Colorado. And so it'll be interesting to see how AAVSB deals with that as well, knowing that they both are the credentialing agency and creating the examination for the VPA. So we'll be monitoring that closely, but those are pretty significant resolutions that were passed in the annual conference itself. So I just want to add that.
Hey, well, thank you for that.
Bradbury had.
Dr. Bradbury?
I just wanted to say that I was that I'm excited to be a part of the Board of Governors, and it's not the Board of Governors, it's the Board of Directors. Sorry, that's the CVMA. And I'm really excited to be working with them. I would just like to encourage all of the board members to pay attention to the emails that we get and some of the model regulations and Practice Act, just some of the documents that are sent to us and we're asked to review as the California board. It is really helpful if we do have any suggestions to bring them to these meetings here. It would be helpful for me as a representative of the AAVSB. Of course, that's who I'm representing in that capacity. But I feel like we need to just really be engaged as a board, and that helps as a board of directors member to at least have some perspective from California. And I feel like sometimes it's easy to kind of gloss over the AAVSB stuff, but it is really important.
Hey, I guess, okay, so that's it. And the third item that I have is with regards to the joint stakeholder meeting, which was convened on October 1st between California Veterinary Medical Board and the Board of Pharmacy. In response to concerns raised during the CVMB's Sunset Review hearing, the primary rationale behind this collaboration was to address the issue of limited access for veterinarians and consumers to essential compounded veterinary medications. Such medications often require specialized compounding that goes beyond the routine expertise found in typical veterinary practice, highlighting the indispensable role of veterinary compounding pharmacies in providing these necessary treatments. In the meeting, there was a direct input from veterinary compounding community seeking to identify specific barriers within California, such as statutory or regulatory restrictions that may be impeding access to compounded medications. The stakeholders were encouraged to discuss which medications are most affected by those limitations and to propose potential solutions that could improve access. I just wanted to mention that there were a number of attendees, about 70 attendees, which included practitioners. We have veterinary specialists. We have representatives from compounding pharmacies, both local and from other states. And recommendations, or it was emphasized that the recommendations need to balance enhanced availability of medications with the ongoing commitment to consumer protection. This collaborative effort marked a significant step towards ensuring that veterinarians and our clients have reliable access to the treatments that they require. Yes, Dr. Bradbury.
Are you done? I didn't,
Yes,
okay.
I am.
So yeah, I had the opportunity to participate in this as well. And I just was wondering with some follow-up. So the new, is it a regulation that was passed by them, the new language with where the third party gamma radiation, I just don't want to use the wrong terminology as to what was passed right before the meeting by the pharmacy board.
Okay, so yes, the Board of Pharmacy did have a rather substantive rulemaking package that passed regarding compounding. I think the specific concern that remained that was discussed was related to GFI guidance regarding requirement for gamma sterilization done on site. And so with that, the Board of Pharmacy in California is enforcing that requirement. And because of that requirement, Wedgwood would no longer be able to ship specific equine ointments into California. The discussion, though, talked about how there are in the 49 other states, Wedgwood is able to ship that information ship those medications to those 49 other states. And so there were questions as far as why California specifically is enforcing it that way and how the other states are able to interpret that to mean that they are able to. And so I think there's more research to be done on that.
Okay, so that, because that was just, I know we were going to follow up on that and haven't gotten much further at this point. Okay.
Not at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And in addition to that, I think both Epicure and Wedgwood said that they would issue a list of like the medications that are available.
Yeah, so there were several things that were discussed. That issue was specific to Wedgwood. Epicure did say that is not their concern of why they're not providing those medications. Their concern more had to do with the demand. And so because there wasn't a high enough demand, it didn't make sense for them to be doing it, and they did have the ability to do it on site. So there were two different reasons with the big compounding pharmacies, veterinary compounding pharmacies, of why those ointments are not provided in California. So they were different. There was also a lot of discussion about specific medications. Overall, there was a misunderstanding of why certain medications weren't being available. And there's a whole bunch of different reasons why. Some had to do with the GFI, some was because of the regulation or interpretation of it. But then some you have availability issues within the compounding pharmacies, also just some misunderstanding of what regulations were. And so I think there's there was a lot of clarification, but among that was about how to get specific medications onto a list for FDA to approve. And CVMA is very instrumental in getting a lot of those medications put onto that list. And while they're on the list, Dr. Miller clarified that they are able to, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, but to ship while they're pending the review. So that is very helpful. At the same time, there were some medications that were listed that they were saying were not available from Wedgwood, and the Wedgwood representative had said that he had actually thought that they were available to his knowledge, so he was going to look at that. So there was a lot of specific medications that were being discussed as well. But I think all parties were committed to working together on how to get that availability and access to California.
I don't know that everybody here knows what GFI is. So I just, it's a federal, can you explain better? It was a federal,
Oh, gosh.
it's like
I think Dr. Miller is probably the more qualified than I to talk about that, but in general, it's FDA.
it's GFI 256, but it's not
Yeah.
because of the Board of Pharmacy or the Pharmacy Board, right?
So it's federal guidance, so not a statute or a regulation federally. So I'm going to emphasize guidance, but in California, they put it into their regulations that the guidance is now law. So they're enforcing it as if it is law. I'm seeing Dr. Miller's face of maybe there's some clarification there, but that's my understanding.
Yeah.
But again, I am definitely not an expert.
Well, and then
when it comes to that.
the compounding pharmacies are not, because when federal inspectors come in and are doing things, it's frowned upon for them to not be following guidance. And so they choose to follow all of the guidance.
Yeah.
So now we have some drugs that are really important that have been put on the you can't use list. And there's many though that are just pending
Yes, there are a lot of medications.
and a few that are approved.
Yeah, and a lot of the medications that we're talking about, their difficulty getting, they're actually already on this list. So I think it was overall a very successful stakeholder meeting. And I do want to thank Board of Pharmacy for doing that. So it
Yes.
was a long time coming, but I really appreciate that they were open to having that stakeholder meeting.
Yes, that was a very good stakeholder meeting. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that CVMA participated greatly in that meeting, especially with the fact with the GFI information. Dr. Miller provided a lot of information, I think, for clarity of the conversation. So thank you.
I also just wanted to mention there was the exotics veterinary community was represented by a few vets, and they really can't treat their animals at this point because of these bulk drug limitations. And I'm not sure that that's protecting animals and consumers, and I'm not sure how we address that. But they're not able. They would have to order a drug under an animal's name and then have that drug in the hospital and use it separately. And I know that's against, all of the regulations. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to make exemptions if the Board of Pharmacy, I am very concerned about practitioners not being able to use these drugs.
And I think we can continue the collaboration and continue help assisting with information, whether it's us helping mediate discussions or help with research and bring these groups together. I think it's been helpful. The other thing, you mentioned exotics, because there's also a requirement that if it's commercially available, then you shouldn't be compounding. But especially with exotics, I talk about how it may be commercially available in a specific form. But so if you think about a tablet that it's commercially available in, for a bird or a very small species, you can't get a tablet into their mouth to swallow. And so that makes it so you have to compound in very, very small increments. And so there's concerns there that there has to be some kind of exceptions for that as well.
I just wanted to mention that I think the most that we can do as a board is really to continue the conversations and, as Jessica said, kind of mediate, because ultimately these pharmacies that provide answer to the Board of Pharmacy. And we really have no control over that. We can't even like pass legislation or, I mean, pass rules, exemptions. You know, we don't have that. It's not under our purview. So I guess for the benefit of our consumers and of the profession, I think we just need to continue the conversation and hopefully get some results. Yeah. Okay. And yes, Matt.
Sorry, I don't know, this might have been already covered by what was discussed in the demand aspect of that, but one thing I remember from the meeting, I believe it was the gentleman from Epicure that was from New Jersey, and he mentioned that some of the solutions are being demanded in like a lot of different concentrations, and so it's like overly burdensome for them to make them in all those different concentrations to send out. So he kind of mentioned if the community or the industry could come to some kind of collaboration or understanding on what percentage would be the most appropriate, I guess, then they could work with that a little bit more than like the broad spectrum of concentrations.
Thank you, Matt. That was really what you call is a good point that they made, that it would make it easier for them to develop the product that would have more, I guess, consumers availing rather than having different products, and it would just be not have enough what you call this sales. So okay, that's it. Okay, now I'd like to open the president's report for public comment in the room.
Just very brief public comment. Dr. Grant Miller from the California Veterinary Medical Association. If I were to make extensive comments on the compounding, we would need another 12 hours on the clock and a martini cart in here to figure it all out. But what I'd like to say is I'm very grateful to the Veterinary Medical Board, not only post BOP sunset, but also before it. The Veterinary Medical Board has reached out as far as they can to try to understand what these compounding problems are. And we greatly appreciate that. And I feel like the board's involvement as a liaison with the Board of Pharmacy has greatly improved our ability to communicate with them and to help everyone understand what's going on, because we learned a lot in the roundtable discussion too about GFI and USP and regulations and how they all intersect. It's very complicated. What I will leave this board with now, though, is that at this moment, there are still medications in California that are not available here. And that's not really due to the GFI 256 inclusion list. It's not really due to USP. It's due to the regulations that the Board of Pharmacy just recently enacted on October 1, in which they took their interpretation of USP and decided that gamma radiation facilities need to be in the same location as where the compounds are being created. And so those details are beyond this board. But I do feel it's important for the board to understand that at this moment, we have about 7 medications that are mainly equine ophthalmics that are not available here. And we're trying to try to find those solutions, but at this exact moment, we don't have them. And that is a great concern for me, not only as the regulatory director at the CVMA, but also just as an equine practitioner. I'm very concerned that we don't have certain key medications like voriconazole and chloramphenicol and diclofenac to treat horses' eyes. And so I hope that this is not the last of the dialogue with the Board of Pharmacy. I'm hoping that the Board of Pharmacy can work with Wedgwood to try to figure out a solution, to see, at least in the interim, is there something we can do until we can find a longer term solution. And I may be coming to this board to ask for advice or for any thoughts on how we might be able to facilitate that happening. But for what this board has done, it's just commendable. And we couldn't do it without your help. And so thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Miller. Now, moderator, could you please open up the line for those participating remotely?
WebEx is taking public comment once again. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request online, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you. Now we move on to agenda item 22, our RVT report.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, happy Registered Veterinary Technician Week. We always seem to meet during Vet Tech Week. So, okay, so as Jessica mentioned and reported on, I attended the CVMA Board of Governors meeting last week, and as well as the informational hearing on the role for human healthcare providers, both of which were very interesting. I appreciate being able to step in when I can. The AAVSB VTNE committee meeting, I'm going to just touch on a little bit. So we had our most recent meeting in September at the annual conference, and we do item review and discussion. The committee also discussed the Colorado initiative and how it was going to be implemented. AAVSB leadership advised the committee how they felt it was in the best interest to take charge of this new role and better be to be in control. The committee raised common concerns, including how do you create a job analysis for a job that doesn't exist? How do you create a test? How it was going to be funded, citing that the VTNE was most likely the only source of revenue. And we also expressed concern and careful consideration being placed on committee members, since most professionals in Colorado were against the initiative. And that being the case, those who funded the initiative could possibly fight to be on the committee, creating a bias and conflict for what AAVSB was trying to create as a national exam. I did ask AAVSB representatives, since they stated that most of their membership, and now we know that it was against the initiative. I asked what the vision and mission were for AAVSB, and I did not get a clear answer on that. The committee also had intense discussions on the exam itself, and we are awaiting some responses on that. So as Jessica said, it's, same conversation was occurring in some other areas of the AAVSB sessions throughout the conference, which of course I'm not part of because I'm part of the VTNE committee. I would like to also state that the Celebrating Diversity Award, the AAVSB offers a Celebrating Diversity Award to one graduating veterinary technology student who comes from a traditionally underrepresented group in the veterinary technician profession. The VTNE committee will be completing a rubric for each applicant to determine the recipient. However, first we are evaluating the process to ensure the process awards the recipient based upon the candidate's commitment to fostering, cultivating, and preserving a culture of diversity, equity, and inclusion while treating everyone with respect and dignity. The candidate must be graduating from an AVMA, CVTA, or CVMA, which is the Canada Veterinary Medical Association graduate accredited program. So just keep that in mind, because they don't get many applicants for this, and they also have another award that they give out, and they're awarded with a free a VTNE voucher. So I would like to encourage everybody to submit for this award. And then lastly, I'd like to personally thank Nancy Ehrlich for her many years attending these and MDC meetings along the years. She's also attended many stakeholder meetings. Nancy and I have not always been on the same side, which I think brings she brings much needed conversations to our profession and consumers. And I think that her and I have grown very fond of each other over the years, and I appreciate all of her input. And I wish her the best in a much deserved retirement announcement. And of course, she deserves it during RVT week. So congratulations.
Any comments? All right. Any comments from the room, from the public? I see none. Moderator, can you open up the line for comments on the RVT report?
WebEx is open for public comment on agenda item 22. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Oh, yes, please, thank you. All right, and I guess that would oh, we're doing 23, all right. I know, I'm like, yay. So, okay, we will move on to executive management reports. And starting with Matt. Thank you.
Hello. Matt McKinney, Deputy Executive Officer. I can speak to. Okay, so I'm going to start with the admin report. In May 2025, our lead licensing analyst, Kelly Fairless, accepted a promotional position with another DCA entity. Following her departure, we reevaluated the duties on her position's duty statement to determine if any duties could be currently assigned to the position could be reassigned. We determined duties relating to updating the board's breeze systems were better served under enforcement. A lot of the processes of enforcement, like the adding of activity codes and things like that, is more, I guess, nuanced than some of the licensing processes. So we felt like the person needed to have a comprehensive understanding of that, those processes to really serve the board well in that capacity. So we ended up putting on the enforcement team, and since the probation technician position was still vacant at the time, which was currently on the enforcement team, we determined office needs would be better met to reclassify that position into a SSA/AGPA with those updated duties. So in addition to maintaining and updating Breeze, the newly established data analyst position will generate custom reports and assist the board with data integrity. We had a lot of people apply for the position. We posted it internally and externally. And ultimately, one of our current enforcement analysts, or I guess prior enforcement analyst, On-Tu Lee, was appointed to the position, and she began transitioning to the duties back in August. And I just want to give a shout out to On-Tu because she's been doing an awesome job with diving in and getting through backlog of old BMOs and just really following up with me and Jessica to make sure that she understands things and moves it forward. So she's doing a great job there. At the same time, some of the duties that we previously had for the licensing analyst stayed there, and we added some other duties to basically turn the position into a board and committee member liaison. And then in August, we hired a person for that position. He's actually here, Robert Esquivel. You've probably all heard from him as you got prepared for the meeting. He's helping out with all the onboarding and the travel and arrangements like that. He came to the board from the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services, which is also another DCA entity, and he's been with DCA for over a decade. So we're glad to have Robert on board. And I'm jumping around a little bit from the memo just to try to keep everything with that position went this way. But in July, we also said goodbye to Bryce Lasky, one of our enforcement analysts. He accepted a position as a special investigator with DCA's Division of Investigation. So we wish him good luck there. And then in October, we welcomed Gabrielle Luna to the team. She's a seasonal clerk who's going to primarily be digitizing physical files. She was employed at Rhino Electric before she came to the board, where she's an administrative assistant, and she's got off to a running start with us. So we also have the organization chart for reference. Moving on to staff training, we all attended, well, all board and DCA staff were invited to a department-wide training facilitated by Solid in collaboration with Dr. Bernard Gibson. The training focused on cultivating high-trust culture and developing effective tools to navigate workplace challenges. Although everyone was invited to the training, not everyone was able to attend due to technical issues related to allowable capacity of online attendees. So Solid disseminated the recorded presentation to everyone through its learning management system on August 29th, 2025. And as a second part of that training on September 4th, all the board managers attended a follow-up presentation by Dr. Gibson, and the training topics there included how leaders can impact culture shifts to fuel collaborative problem solving, providing tools to enable teams to foster respectful, high-functioning workplace cultures. I also had a list of we have a list on there of the elective training staff took between July 1st and September 30th, 2025. And from there, we'll move on to the budget. So for the expenditures, agenda item 23, attachment 2, these projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 13. The report includes 24-25 actual expenditures in green, as well as 25-26 budgeted and actual in blue and orange. Moving through the document, you'll see the board had a beginning base budget of 8.449 million and spent just over 8.2 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of approximately 2.95% or $249,000. Attachment 3 is the revenue report. That includes receipts collected through June and the total revenue to year end. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in the fund condition overview, which is attachment 4. Like any document, you'd read it from top to bottom, left to right. So for the 24-25 actuals, the board reported revenues of about 9.2 million, with just over 1.8 million projected from initial license fees and 6.6 million from renewal fees, another 712,000 from citations, fines, and delinquent fees and other revenue. The 24-25 expenditures are based on actuals at about 8.377 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of just over 10.5 million. Well, that doesn't seem like that was accurate. Sorry. The current year is on budget. The current year is based on the budget DAC, and the board is projected to collect approximately 8.6 million in revenue, with 1.8 protected from initial license fees, 6.2 from renewal fees, and 513 from citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenues. The board's 25-26 projected expenditures are 9.8 million. That's where I meant to go, between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance projected of 9.4 million or 11.2 months in reserve. And as always, the budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditures and report back to us with monthly expenditure projections as they continue to close fiscal months in the current fiscal year. And I think that's it for the admin report. Do we want to do questions there? Just, okay, any questions for the
If there's
admin?
any questions for the admin report? Okay.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the licensing report then?
Please.
Okay, no problem. I'll do that one as well. Okay, so we have updates from the examination vendors, ICVA and AAVSB for you since the last board meeting. Just the announcement that they've put out there. I won't go through any of those really in detail. For licensing updates for the board, I'm kind of excited to announce that we update our application processing time webpage. So we worked with DCA's OIS team, Information Services, to update that webpage. The new design uses the same format as DCA's licensing performance ledgers webpage. Justin, do you mind clicking on the link? Yeah, the first one there. So this one, I think it's cool because it's like real-time data, and it's not like where we're updating a table. So it looks like it just is more comprehensive overview of the data and comparing it. And you can actually like filter it for, you know, the month at a time, or you can filter it to a specific license type. There's a second chart below that one for renewals. And I like it too because we have it so the license types and the type of applications are only BMB applications. So it's, you know, really focused on what we want to see or our applicants would like to see. So it was nice working with OIS on that, and they had multiple teams actually work on it because they have like a Tableau team, and then the internet team had to post it. So we had to like collaborate there, and it was pretty quick, and they're really responsive. They actually kept following up with me about like, hey, is this what you want it to be like? We got it done. So it's live and I'm excited about it. Thank you, Justin. So for licensing stats, the board received a total of 887 license applications in Q1 of 25-26. There was a decline of 222 received for VA CSPs. The number of applications received decreased by approximately 281 comparing to the first quarter of fiscal year 24-25. And the board issued 924 licenses, registrations, and permits in the first quarter of 25-26, which is also a slight decrease compared to 1,024 in Q1 of 24-25. Despite a decline of licenses, registrations, and permits issued overall, the board issued more veterinarian licenses in Q1 of FY 25-26 at 225 than it has in Q1 of the past 3 fiscal years. Similar to applications received, most significant decline in licenses, permits, and registrations issued was in VA CSPs with approximately 101 less issued. Board's pending applications at the end of Q1 of the fiscal year across all license types was 475. That represents a decrease in pending applications by approximately 18% compared to the application at the end of the Q1 of last fiscal year, 24-25. Overall, the licensed population increased, and I think that's the trend that we just see continuously, that it goes up. So we have the stats on there in table format, and then at the bottom, another link to the processing times like we usually provide at the bottom of the stats page. Any
I
questions?
just have to say, I love the website.
you.
I went in and I was like, you can filter everything and you can do it. It really does show
Yeah.
the progress and the whole process
If
itself.
I can be honest for a second, I was so excited when I got home. I want to show my wife. So I pull up my cell phone and I'm trying to show her the web page, but on your cell phone, if anyone's open on your cell phone, I think it's a different formatting for that Tableau application. So it looks really weird. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Like, no, this isn't right. But then I pull it up on my laptop. I'm like, oh, that's how it's supposed to look there. So, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
It is really cool, but our name is wrong on it. It's no,
no.
it just says Veterinary Medical Board.
Oh, good catch. Okay, thank you. All right, I'll have to reach out to my guy then. Thanks, Dr. Bradbury. I appreciate that.
I do want to add to the examination portion of the report, and this is more, I mean, that it's not in here because Channing from AAVSB did provide me the graph. It was mentioned during the AAVSB Board of Directors meeting during the annual conference. There was information being provided regarding the pass rates of the VT&E, and they broke it up by those who were still in school and took the VT&E, those who had already graduated as well. And then you had differentiation between first-time test takers and repeat test takers. And for those of you who were here a couple years ago now, or last year, I don't know, it all blends together for me. But there was a strong push from us to AAVSB. They had a policy that only individuals who had graduated from the RVT programs would be able to take the VT&E, with the exception of some choice states who had exceptions. But we had urged with some other states for AAVSB to change their policy. And it took about a year and a lot of meetings, a lot of discussion. But AAVSB did agree to change their policy to allow the students to take the exam while they were still in school. One of the biggest concerns that we heard from a lot of, I think, educators and from the VT&E committee prior to having Christy join, was that if they allowed the students to take the exam while they were still in school, there was a huge concern that the students would not be prepared to pass the exam, and that would result in the schools losing their accreditation, because part of the accreditation is about keeping their pass rates up. I think it's within 2 years of the national average. And so there was a lot of concerns that everything was going to plummet and that they would impact their accreditation. When we heard that concern, I reached out to Pima Institute, who were one of the first individuals that brought this concern to me, and the inconsistencies that were happening, because they were able to I believe their students in Washington were able to take the exam prior to graduating, and they had statistics on showing that their students who were able to take the exam prior to graduation actually did significantly better on the exam than those who had already graduated. And so I shared that data with them as well. It didn't do much for alleviating the concern, because that concern remained. But I'm happy to report that I think now that a year has passed, they have data on showing that actually the students who now are taking that exam prior to graduating are performing 10% higher than those who had already graduated. So it's showing that it's actually helping the students be more successful by allowing them to take the exam prior to graduation. And also veterinarians, they have been allowed to take the veterinary students have been allowed to take the exam, the NAVLE, so now it's more comparable, and it's showing that it's actually helping the students get licensed quicker as well nationally. So I just wanted to share that that data that AAVSB provided. Perhaps now we can do, before we jump into the other, for enforcement, maybe do public comment on admin licensing examination.
I guess we're opening it up for public comment in the room for agenda item 23A and B. I see none. Moderator, could you please open up the line for those participating remotely? This is for agenda item 23A and B.
WebEx is open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. We will continue now with agenda item 23C for enforcement.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Stephanopoulos, Enforcement Manager, and then Patty's with me as well. Ashley Sanchez is not with us today. She's out on maternity leave, but of course we wish her well. We'll probably I'm going to start with Patty and then I'll go. You can start.
Okay, there we go. Okay. In August, we held an inspector roundtable meeting. And during that meeting, we discussed some issues with the mobile app. And so we worked through those. And we also discussed potential future enhancements. There were a couple of new inspectors that joined our meeting, and we encouraged them to ask questions. The next roundtable meeting is scheduled for November 17th, next month. And as part of the board's ongoing outreach efforts, an inspection webinar was held last month, and that webinar featured a presentation by the California Department of Health's Radiological Health Branch. So the section chief of the Radiation Machine Inspection Compliance and Enforcement section gave an overview of their radiation safety program. And RHB, as you probably know, enforces laws and regulations addressing radiation designed to protect the public, workers, and the environment. And they're responsible for all the licensing and registration of X-ray producing machines, as well as inspections of facilities using radiation. And that webinar was well received and well attended. The next webinar will be scheduled sometime early next year. Don't know what the topic is going to be, but I'm sure we'll come up with something. Ongoing recruitment efforts continued for an inspector in the Bay Area. And while we have been receiving a lot of interest, unfortunately, a lot of the potential candidates are not meeting the criteria. But we just interviewed a potential candidate in the Bay Area. So we're excited to have her join our team very soon. And just an update on the mobile inspection app, it will soon be upgraded to an actual iOS application. So we're looking forward to that. Testing will begin soon on that. It says on here that the testing was supposed to be completed, but it hasn't started yet. So it will be soon. Probably by the end of the month, they should be completed. So that's coming. We wrote this a couple weeks ago. I'll turn it over to Rob.
Okay. So as far as intake goes, intake's doing a great job. They continue to process complaints well below the 10-day cycle time. That's our goal. So they're about 3 days right now. If you look at the stats, there's a little bit of an increase on the pending number of complaints that need to be processed. But as I mentioned during the prior board meeting, it's because they're working on the records project where they're trying to get all the records for our pending cases and get those over into the consultant queue. As far as investigations go, we had a slight increase in September over what we had at the end of the fiscal year, but we had some vacancies, so we should be able to keep chopping down at that number of cases pending. We did have, like I said, we had some vacancies, but we still had a good amount of closures per analyst. So we still had 10 closures per analyst. So we're still where we need to be, but we just had the vacancies. Subject matter expert program. I think this was mentioned a couple times before during the MDC meeting and on the update. So I guess I can just kind of summarize. We had a couple of meetings for our consultants and our experts, the roundtables. And I think we've talked about it before. The roundtables are just an opportunity for the consultants and the experts to meet with each other and just go over topics. It's kind of like I guess, a safe space for them to talk about things. It's not recorded or anything like that. But a lot of times we'll go over just some reminders, and then they can talk to each other about case kind of specifics or hypotheticals, and then tips as far as reviewing cases and writing up their reports. So there's a little bit of list there. I know there's more on the MDC memo as well. And then in probation, we've got about 23 complaints against 12 probationers and 5 inspections. And there's 4 petitions for early termination pending. And we don't have any petitions for reinstatement pending right now. And 2 licensees began probation. And so we have got 58 current probationers. And then 8 of those are told. And then, of course, we have the tables with the disciplinary action votes, and then our normal pie charts with the complaints received by type, and the bar graph with our pending cases, and it shows the buckets of how old those cases are. And then, of course, the usual stats, although they are a little bit different. I think the rep from DCA explained the annual report. It's been updated a little bit, so we are using a different report that basically handles all of these. Typically, we had to run multiple reports to get all of this data. But obviously, we didn't want to just start using the new report and then have fields that didn't match up, because then you're not really comparing apples to apples. So On2 was working on, our data analyst was working on, well, and has it here, the prior year-to-dates from the fiscal years for that new report that we're using. So everything should be apples to apples when you're looking at this. So you'll notice a couple of differences here. For example, we used to have convictions separated from complaints. Here, they're all in one. If you look at the year-to-date, we've got 574. And I mean, I do this every year, but if you straight line that out, it looks like we're going to have around, I think it's around 23 or 2,400 complaints. Another, I guess, banner year of complaints received. So we've gone up every year with complaints received. And yeah, once again, it's going to be much more than the prior year. And the other thing, I know I've typically pulled out the cycle time for intake, because typically the cycle times we've reported have been on cases that we've closed, and then it'll say this is how long it took for intake to open that case. But it didn't represent our current intake team, and this data actually represents what the current intake team is doing. So they're at 3 days. It's the current intake team. That's what they're working with. And then there's probably, I mean, there's some other changes in here too, but for the most part, it should look pretty similar. Just like I said, a few little changes. And if there's any questions.
I actually have a question. With regards to the subject matter expert program, you wrote here like avoiding the use of AI. What specifically do you think they use AI for?
I can't remember. There was the question about that, and I can't remember if it was in reference to maybe like a definition or something that might seem like it's black and white, not necessarily writing the report, but a piece of it, maybe, like I said, coming up with a definition or whatever it may be. But the concern, of course, is a big concern if it's writing the report. But even the information that's there, if it's not being verified, and I know there's problems with AI, we just want to stay away from it entirely at this point.
Yeah, because I
So-
just wanted to, like AI right now is a tool, like
Right.
a lot of people utilize it, right? Even if it's just for, I guess, composition, right? Like they write a report, they use the AI. So I'm just thinking, what is the restriction of the use of AI per se?
Well, and I think there could also be a concern too. I mean, if you're using AI in a report, I would think that if we were trying to take action against the licensee and that came up, that could be kind of a problem.
Yeah, so I'm just going to clarify, our subject matter experts should not be using AI for anything related
Right.
to enforcement because everything they review is highly confidential. So nothing will be going into AI to write reports. So to be very clear.
That's all I have. Anybody else? I know, like you never know what's going to go out, right? So,
Yeah, and I think for the most part, they were using it for, innocuous purposes, just, definitions and whatnot, but it's best just to stay away from it.
yep. Anybody else comment? All right.
I did just want to add that as far as the inspection checklist, I know the subcommittee worked, tirelessly on it, and we just received the draft edits from PDE, and so they look really good. So we hopefully will be able to post those soon.
Okay, so we would open this agenda item for public comment. Any public comment in the room? Looks like there's none. So, moderator, could you please open up the line for those participating remotely?
WebEx is now taking public comment again. If you'd like to take a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We are now moving on to agenda item 23D for outreach.
Okay, a lot of what's mentioned in the outreach report has been discussed pretty extensively, so I'll be brief. On page 1, we just included the announcement for Dr. Tomlinson's appointment to the board, so congratulations again, Dr. Tomlinson. We did include that update in our August monthly listserv update, which is mentioned in the next paragraph. Other updates we provided in August in our monthly update were the business and actions from the July MDC and board meetings. We also had a mention of the September 23rd radiation safety webinar, which was just mentioned. We also usually include SME recruitment language in there and also mention our future meeting dates. The next item on page 1 is just a mention again of the joint stakeholder meeting that was held on October 1st. That was discussed extensively under the president's report. So just a mention here that we distributed an announcement to our email subscribers on October 21st. And then a reminder announcement was also distributed at the end of September. On page 2, just a mention of our September monthly update to our email subscribers. Again, there was mention of the radiation safety webinar, another blurb about inspector and SME recruitment and future meeting dates. And I will mention that a link to the radiation safety webinar was posted on our homepage yesterday. So you can access a link to the YouTube video from our website, our homepage. On September 19th, we sent out a notice of proposed regulatory action. This was regarding our drug compounding rulemaking. And as mentioned earlier, we're in the middle of the 45-day public comment period at this time, and that concludes on November 3rd. Again, just a mention of the radiation safety webinar. I will add that we had approximately 156 individuals who participated in the webinar, and the board issued continuing education certificates to eligible participants. And again, just a mention of the joint stakeholder meeting. And then also discussed earlier in the meeting, the shelter stakeholder meeting, which was held on October 9th. And again, the board did approve a legislative proposal to amend BPC section 4827 earlier today. So just an update there. We've also reported on the October 10th presentation. Dr. Solicito and Ms. Sieferman attended CVMA's quarterly Board of Governors meeting.
Sorry, just a
Oops.
quick correction, because Dr. Solzio was unable to attend, but Christy Plowski attended.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. So they provided an overview of board activities since their last quarterly meeting and strongly emphasized the importance of recruiting SMEs to review enforcement cases. And then lastly, on page 3, a strategic plan update. This is regarding strategic plan objective 5.6. During the July meeting, the MDC's outreach subcommittee reported it provided input on a spectrum of care article for the Journal of the American Veterinary Medical Association, a dedicated spectrum of care article. That article was published and can be found at this link provided in the memo. And then again, as mentioned on September 23rd, the outreach subcommittee and Ms. Sieferman presented to CCVMA in Fresno, California. The presentation included a high-level overview of the board and how the board views spectrum of care. They clarified how the spectrum of care is considered the standard of care and explained the difference between spectrum of care, excessive treatment, and when treatment falls below the standard of care. They also emphasized the importance of documenting all discussions and encouraged documenting when a client declines services. And that concludes the outreach update.
Does anybody have any comments with regards to the outreach update? None? Okay, let's open it up for public comment in the room. I see none. Moderator, could you please open it up for our participants online?
We are now taking public comment on outreach. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you. All right. And then we're going to start discussing agenda item 23E, our strategic plan with our Deputy Executive Officer.
Thank you. We'll play musical chairs and musical mics. I'll use this one this time. All right, so not much as far as the update here to provide. We continue to work on the strategic plan, and we try to prioritize tasks based on when the target completion days are so that they can be completed prior to the board identified deadline as much as possible. As of October 1st, 2025, we've completed 59% of the objectives and 79% of the tasks. There's 191 tasks total to be completed and 41 objectives, so we're moving along pretty well. I think the only real issue we've been coming into as far as completing some of the deadlines have been when another agency or department within DCA is not available. Like we mentioned earlier, OPA wasn't going to be available to create the videos until the first quarter of 2026 likely. And so anytime we are getting behind on a deadline, whether it's because of, we just didn't meet the deadline or the other agency or other parties' involvement, we just update the date in red to show that it's passed. Or that it's been updated, I guess, in some instances. So if there's any questions on the strategic plan, I'd be happy to answer those. Or if there's any questions about the tracker, I'd be happy to answer those. Thank you.
Good job. Good job. Yeah, you guys are doing such a great job with our strategic plan. I guess there's really nothing to comment about it. Like, speed it up. No.
Well, I file comment because I think it's kind of interesting. I was noticing when I updated it where I felt like we were a little stagnant because we're at 59% still, but then I was thinking about we're 59% done, but we're in the first year of, or like make it the second year now of it. So I feel like we're moving along pretty well still. So
Yeah,
I don't really call that stagnation as much as like just focusing our priorities.
exactly.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you might slow it down just a little so that we don't have to have another strategic planning one. No, really, it's great job.
Yeah.
Keep
You
up the good
guys
work.
really did such a great job right from the start, and that's why kind of slowing it down a little bit is kind of acceptable, I guess.
Just to let my team know, we will not be slowing down, so.
Yeah, I didn't say
Just
that.
Earmuffs when they say that.
Guys had a great head start. That's what it was.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay, so let us open up the agenda item for public comment in the room. I see none. Moderator, if you could please open it up for our participants online, agenda item 23E.
We are once again open for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Okay, since it's a little early to adjourn and we really would like to buy us some time for tomorrow's agenda items, we will continue on with agenda item 24 and 25. So for agenda 24, Jessica?
All right, so the future agenda items is basically everything that the MDC is tasked with right now will be coming in the future to the board. So we're looking at transitioning to requiring electronic medical records. We're looking at the electronic signature requirements. We're looking at the HQ, HVSN clinics and alternate premises and what that looks like when it comes to regulations. We're looking at the VCPR condition-specific language, removing that condition-specific language. We're the licensing manager requirement, and then that limited license for shelters, whether the reciprocity for graduates, and then also the VCPR for high-quality, high-volume spays and neuters. I do think that there's going to be a pretty interesting legislative year that will be coming. So those are currently the things that are in the pipeline. As far as meeting dates, they're all posted on our website. But for 2026, for everybody, it's going to be January 21st through 22nd, April 15th and 16th, July 15th and 16th, October 14th and 15th. So with that, we can open it up to the board members if you want to add to the list of future agenda items.
I'm wondering if it would be good to gather information from other states about the comment Karen Atlas made about finding out if there have been complaints or issues in other states that have these allied health practitioners. If you've already got that information, but I didn't know if that would be something at another meeting just to go over the results of that investigation.
Sure.
Anything else that you would like to add to our future agenda item?
I mean, somewhat related to the student loan thing. I mean, one thing that has struck me is there seems to be a shortage of veterinarians in the state, and with only 2 schools that provide education to future vet students, can we open up a dialogue with like the University of California to see if there's any interest in having additional vet schools? I mean, I know timing wise, this may not be appropriate with the budgets, but I don't know if that's ever communicated to our colleges in the state, just the need there is for more more vet schools and just see what the future plans are in that area.
Yeah, and so perhaps what we could do too is provide information about other outside factors that are going to help contribute to that shortage. And I'm specifically about the number of veterinary schools. While they're not in the pipeline for California, there's a lot of veterinary schools that are looking to be onboarded in the United States. And I can provide that update at the next meeting as well. But just in short, COE, who is the organization who accredits colleges, they have, I think, 17 in the pipeline right now, which is the most that they've ever had in any given time. So there are things that they think that in the near future will help significantly with that veterinary shortage. So I can provide an update on that.
That would be good. Okay, if there are no more comments from the board, we would like to open the future agenda items and meeting dates for public comment in the room. I see none. So moderator, could you please open it up for folks online?
If you have a suggestion for the board, please raise your hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And our first request is coming from Karen Atlas. Hold on just a moment, please. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi there, thank you. This is Karen Atlas. I am the president of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition, and I'd like to just echo Dr. Christina Bradbury's question on what the results were from the AAVSB meeting. From Ms. Zieferman mentioned in front of Senator Ochoa Boa that she was going to let us all know what the results of the meeting that she led regarding non-veterinary professionals working on animals. I want to see how it compares to Ms. Del Mayo's report when she reported back during the 2016 stakeholders meeting on this. So I'd be very interested in hearing the differences from the last 10 years or 9 years and how they are different from today's results. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that was our only request for public comment.
Thank you. And now we move on to the next agenda item 25. Jessica?
Sure. So it's the election of officers. So if there's any nominations, let's do the president first.
I would like to nominate Dr. Solicito for president.
Dr. Solicito, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Are there any other nominations? Nope. All right. Public comment.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Dr. Maniak seconded. All right. Public comment.
All right. I would like to open up the item for public comment in the room. I see none. Moderator, could you please open it up for participants online?
If you would like to make a comment on the nomination, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment.
Well, thank you. No, thank you.
Seeing no request, you wish to continue with the nomination?
Yes, please.
Ms. Pulaski.
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza.
Yes.
Dr. Maniak.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Solicito.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Did you miss Dr. Tomlinson?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. Thomason.
I didn't know if I should vote.
No, yes, you should. I'm sorry. My bad.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, so we have a position for vice president. Any nominations?
I nominate Christy Pawlowski.
I second.
All right, Christy, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
All right, so we have a nomination, we have a second. Any other nominations? Nope. All right, let's do public comment.
No public comments in the room. Moderator, could you please open it up for our line?
We are open for public comment on the next nomination. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests.
You did great.
We're going to take just a moment to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no requests, you wish to continue with the nomination?
Yes, please.
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury.
Yes.
Mr. Espinoza,
Yes.
Maniak,
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Dr. Tomlinson,
Yes.
Dr. Solacito.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I guess that concludes our session for today. We will convene tomorrow at 9 o'clock.